Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Fallout New Vegas. My name is Camel, and in this video I will be showing you all of the Easter eggs that can be found in Fallout New Vegas's DLCs. Some of these Easter eggs do require the Wild Wastelands trait to be active, and some do not. I will do my best to inform you. First up, we're going to do the Easter eggs from the Gun Runner's Arsenal DLC. Now, along with a wide range of brand new weapons that are introduced with the Gun Runner's Arsenal, there are 22 challenges that are added to the game of Fallout New Vegas. From this list of 22, I have selected my favorite 3, or the 3 challenges that are most Easter egg orientated. For these first 2, we need to head to the fort, the heart of Caesar's Legion. Once here, we need to pay Caesar a visit. To make this a little bit easier, I would suggest taking out all of his guards and mongrel guard dogs before attempting this. So once it's just yourself and Caesar, what you need to do to complete this challenge is, without killing Caesar, you need to cripple his head with a throwing spear. As you can see in the top left-hand corner of the screen, Gun Runner's Arsenal, even a God King can bleed. Cripple Caesar's head with throwing spears. And yes, you are correct. This is referencing the final battle or fight scene at the end of the movie 300, in which the Spartan king, Leonidas, throws a single spear which slashes, crippling Xerxes' head, proving that even a God King can bleed. So apparently I can bleed. And for the second Gun Runner's Arsenal challenge Easter egg, we also need to be with Caesar. Now this challenge is called Historical Propriety, and to complete the challenge, what we need to do is kill Caesar with a knife, which is actually a much harder challenge than you may think. Someone's pulled it off before, so I see no reason why I can't. And upon doing so, we will see in the top left corner once again, Gun Runner's Arsenal, Historical Propriety. Kill Caesar with a knife or combat knife. And this challenge, Historical Propriety, where you need to kill Caesar with a knife, is referencing the death of Julius Caesar when the comprising Senate surrounded him and stabbed him to death with daggers. Something else interesting about this, when you have Arcade Gannon as a follower and you head to the fort, he will stop you and an automatic conversation will begin. When you tell him you plan to kill Caesar, he says this:
I have to commend you on your sense of historical propriety.
See right there, he says the name of the challenge, Historical Propriety. And then he says this:
Just give me a sign when you're about to pull out the dagger so I know when to make a run for the cliffs.
Referencing the knife or dagger that you need to kill Caesar with. And in doing so, of course, referencing the event of Julius Caesar's death via dagger. And for the third Gun Runner's Arsenal challenge, we need to head to the Lucky 38 with a golf club. Once inside and fighting through an army of Securitrons and computers, we need to head to the control room. Once in the control room, what we actually need to do is unseal the LS chamber, so we can encounter Mr. House face to face. Because Mr. House loved golf so much, we must give him one last game. We need to club Mr. House to death with a 9-iron or Nafis golf driver. Once doing so, in the top left corner we will see once again, Gun Runner's Arsenal, a slave obeys. Kill Mr. House with a 9-iron or Nafis golf driver. Now the name of this challenge, A Slave Obeys, is a reference to BioShock, where the player, Jack, is ordered by Andrew Ryan to kill him with a golf club. Before handing you the golf club, Andrew Ryan says, "A man chooses, a slave obeys." And he repeats to say this as you beat him to death with the golf club he just handed you. So the name of this challenge and the actions taken out are referencing that event from BioShock. Also, both characters that were clubbed to death with golf clubs, Andrew Ryan and Mr. House, were both heavily influenced from the real-life millionaire, billionaire tycoon Howard Hughes. Two characters from different games influenced by the same real-life person, both beaten to death in their games with golf clubs. And for the final Gun Runner's Arsenal Easter egg, we need to head to Freeside's East Gate. Once here, we need to head into Mick and Ralph's. Once inside, you need to speak to Mick and ask him, what guns do you have for sale? In his inventory, it's not a gun, but you will find a two-handed weapon called Nuka Breaker. Now this weapon, the Nuka Breaker, was actually created as a nod to the 2011 fan-made short film and web series called Fallout Nuka Breaker. The Fallout Nuka Breaker team put the Nuka Breaker, the weapon, in episode 3 after seeing it in a pre-release screenshot of Gun Runner's Arsenal, before they knew that Obsidian was referencing their series. The Nuka Breaker was also featured briefly in the 5th and 6th episodes of the 2nd season of Nuka Breaker. Next up, we're moving on to the Old World Blues DLC, Easter eggs, and all of these do require you to have the Wild Wastelands trait active. For this first one, we need to head to the X12 Research Center. In here, it is possible to hear a trauma override harness say,
"Hey, we'll turn on the lights."
This is a reference to the Doctor Who episodes Silence in the Library and Forest of the Dead, in which a character named Dave is eaten alive inside his spacesuit and his data ghost echoes his last thoughts, which were, "Hey, who turned out the lights?" And after being eaten alive inside his spacesuit, Dave certainly does look quite similar to the trauma override harness. For this next Easter egg, we need to stand exactly where my character is standing. Once here, next to these giant satellite dishes, if we head over to the wall, we will find this. This little fellow looking over a wall, and it says "Kill Rory was here." This phrase was popular with Allied soldiers, usually US soldiers, during World War II, who would leave the graffiti in various, occasionally unlikely places as a sort of commemoration and marker to their progress during the war. For this next one, when talking to Dr. Mobius after he admits he has a vulnerability for holotape fantasies of planets, robots, and all that is forbidden, instead of saying Plan C, he will say,
"I suspect I have Plan 9s in place."
Plan 9s in place. This is actually a reference to the infamous film Plan 9 from Outer Space. Infamous for having goofy acting and atrocious special effects. For this next Easter egg, we need to come to the construction site. Once here, we need to head over to these red crystals sticking out of the ground. And here we will find something incredibly curious. A group of intact garden gnomes standing around these crystals, these gems, with lanterns and mining picks, quite obviously referencing Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Where's Snow White, you ask? Well, there is a large human-sized grave here. I'm going to go ahead and assume that apple was far too delicious to give up, but sadly, as cool as that would have been, there is not an apple in the grave. Just some steady. I don't know. For this next one, we need to come right to where my character currently is. And here we will find a truck that is currently entering a mountain. Now, the number plate on this truck is Rocket 88. This is a reference to the movie The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai Across the 8th Dimension, in which the rocket car drives through a solid mountain. The number plate of this rocket car from the movie is Rocket 88, the same as we find on this truck here. However, this truck was a little bit less successful in terms of driving through the mountain. Next, we need to head to Higgs Village. Inside Higgs Village, behind Dr. Boris's house, is a doghouse, a kennel, which is where the dog Gabe once lived. However, Wild Wastelands has something very interesting in store for us. As we approach this kennel found behind Dr. Boris's house, a miniature Deathclaw will spawn. Now, this little guy, Stripe, is roughly as tough as a legendary Deathclaw. So why is there a miniature Deathclaw called Stripe? Stripe here is a reference to the antagonist in the film Gremlins. Stripe has somewhat of a similar appearance to the leader of the Gremlins named Stripe. At the end of the movie Gremlins, Stripe dies in a fountain similar to the one in the center of Higgs Village, which Stripe in Fallout New Vegas refuses to go near. Gremlins had a preference for chicken, which is why a chicken leg is present in front of this kennel. We can also see the name Gabe on the floor, yet the name Stripe is now across the kennel. Also, for reasons I can't quite figure out, every single time Stripe is killed, he will always be carrying an egg timer. This could just be a reference to not feeding them after midnight, something to do with food and time and egg timer, or it could be referencing the famous kitchen scene from Gremlins. I'm not 100% and nothing has been confirmed, and as far as my memory and research goes, there is no great gravity to an egg timer in regards to Gremlins. But that's quite an interesting little Easter egg there. Next we need to head to the Magneto-Hydraulics Complex. Inside the Magneto-Hydraulics Complex, we will find this, a walking eye. The first of which being the one on screen right here next to the staircase. There is another one on top of the roof to this flooded room. If we go into the flooded room, there is one hanging off the roof, and in the back wall of this flooded room, there is a fourth walking eye on the desk. This scene is a reference to the robotic spider in The Venture Bros, specifically the episode Fallen Archers. And in the show, the robotic spider is also called the walking eye. And while we're on the topic of walking eyes, sometimes when wandering the crater, you will hear Dr. O say this over the intercom.
Attention, lobotomites! Do not neglect to wash the walking eye!
For one, this is referencing a scene from The Venture Bros where Dr. Venture himself seductively washes the walking eye, and secondly, the character Dr. O in Fallout New Vegas and the character Dr. Venture from The Venture Bros are both voiced by the same actor or voice actor, James Urbaniak. So in one simple phrase, we have a couple of different references there, all neatly tied together. Now for these next two Easter eggs, we need to be in the X8 Research Center. Once we enter the high school testing area and turn down this hallway, at the end of the hallway, we will find the word Wolverines spelt out on the wall. This is a reference to the movie Red Dawn, as the Wolverines is a resistance group composed of high school students. The name taken from the name of their football team after their school and America is invaded by Russians in the beginning of the movie. Hence the title, Red Dawn. And for the second Easter egg in the X8 Research Center, after you exit the high school testing area, there is a room with a window that looks into another room containing 5 police cyber dogs. And as you can see, they are sitting around a table littered with cards, poker chips, and alcohol. This refers collectively to a series of 16 oil paintings by C.M. Coolidge, commissioned in 1903 by Brown and Bigelow to advertise cigars, but known in pop culture as just dogs playing poker paintings. In between the two closest dogs on the floor is an ace of clubs, just like in the painting. And now we're going to move on to the Dead Money DLC Easter eggs, and for all of these Easter eggs you do need the Wild Wastelands trait active. For the first Easter egg in Dead Money, when Dean Domino kills his first ghost person, he will say,
"He's not dead, it's a trick. Get an axe."
This line is a reference to a scene near the beginning of the movie Army of Darkness, wherein the series hero Ash cautions a knight against touching a seemingly deceased deadite who, true to his warning, proves to be merely faking. This in turn is a callback to the previous movie where the same line is used. So this line is almost a catchphrase of the Evil Dead franchise. And this line is of course relevant because in Dead Money, the ghost people have to be killed several times before they're actually dead. For this next one, when a dog is your companion, the first time he kills and eats a ghost person, he will say,
Om nom nom.
Om nom nom. This is a reference to the internet meme where om nom nom represents eating something. And this meme originates from the sound the Cookie Monster makes while eating cookies in Sesame Street. And finally, for the Dead Money DLC Easter eggs, we have another Doctor Who reference. In the wine cellar near the bell tower from which you trigger the gala event, the phrase, "I am not your mummy," is scrawled on the central pillar. This is in reference to the ghosts, gas masks, and the two-part episode of Doctor Who, The Empty Child and The Doctor Dances, where in these two episodes at various points there are these creepy-ass kids walking around with World War II gas masks on in a zombified state, constantly saying, "Mummy, are you my mummy?" and following the characters of the show. And you will note that the masks that the ghost people wear in the Dead Money DLC look quite similar to the gas masks that these creepy-ass kids wear in the episodes from Doctor Who, The Empty Child and The Doctor Dances. With that line being said so many times, someone was sick of it and scrawled "I am not your mommy" on the wall. Now we're onto the Honest Hearts DLC Easter eggs, and both of these Easter eggs do require you to have the Wild Wastelands trait active for them to be present. Now the first time you approach Angel Cave in the Honest Hearts DLC, someone unique and very special will run out of the cave to greet you and fist pump the air. Be sure to pay attention because it happens quickly. This character here, Two Bears High-Fiving. It's a relatively interesting name, and as quick as he came, he goes, and you never see him again. This is interestingly a reference to a mod, which is simply called Two Bears High-Fiving. All this mod does is, when you're taking the Rorschach test with Doc Mitchell at the very beginning of Fallout New Vegas, it adds a new speech option, which is Two Bears High-Fiving. I'll show you the image here so specifically you can get some context. The Rorschach test being these mirrored ink images where he asks you what you see and you have a number of replies you can choose from. Well, the creator of this mod was always irked that this particular picture here looked like Two Bears high-fiving to him, yet that was not a speech option to tell Doc Mitchell. And I must agree, on a second appearance that picture does look relatively like Two Bears high-fiving. But as a modder, that's a pretty cool achievement to get your mod referenced in a DLC. And for the second Easter egg found in the Honest Hearts DLC, when speaking to Whitebird in the Sorrows camp during the quest The Rite of Passage, when you ask him what, I don't know what Visions of Truth means, he will shout,
"Take drugs, kill a bear."
Which is rather interesting, as during this quest you do in fact take drugs and kill a bear of sorts. But what this line, "take drugs, kill a bear," is actually referencing is the popular internet memes from Advice Dog, where one of this dog's advice is, you guessed it, take drugs, kill a bear. And just as an example of some of the other advice this dog can give, here's another one. Eat mushrooms. They made Mario grow, and of course, live wires are delicious. However, I must interject on this advice, I do not condone the taking of drugs or the killing of bears. However, some of the advice, it's pretty good. Now onto the Lonesome Road DLCs, and this first one does not require you to have the Wild Wastelands trait active. We need to come to Drywells, and more specifically, exactly where my character is standing. And here, literally at the edge of the world, next to this crater, we will find a building, and on the ground in front of the building, there's a skeleton. Now, as incredible as that is, it's not as cool as this. Up on the wall, there is, I don't even know what you would call this, a blast mark, a blast outline of where this person stood when the bomb went off. Now, as far as I can find, this is the only place in the game that this is used, this body blast outline. Now, as cool as this is, something actually more interesting is that this is completely wrong. After the atrocities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, it was discovered that when a human is hit by a nuclear blast, it leaves a carbon shadow of that person. Here is an image that is an example of a carbon shadow. So as mentioned, it would be the complete opposite. There would be a black carbonized shadow burnt into the stone in the shape of the person, and not a clean shape of the person with a burnt shadow around them. This kind of blast shadowing inversion was probably seen in a movie. Now, the rest of the Lonesome Road DLC Easter eggs do require the Wild Wasteland trait active. Firstly, we need to come to an unmarked location called Dark Cave, just to the east of wastewater treatment plant. Inside this cave, we will find a uniquely named Deathclaw, named Roar. I made this look deceptively easy, where in truth, the fight with Roar is incredibly difficult. On Roar's body, there is a quest item called Roar's Talent. Although this is not required for a quest, it is considered a quest item because it cannot be removed from your inventory once it is picked up. However, this is no downside as there is no weight to it. Once you pick up the claw, this message will appear. This claw is larger and more impressive than those of lesser Deathclaws. You might be able to turn it into a weapon if you find a workbench. So let's go and find a workbench. Recipes, Fist of the North Roar. Now take note that without the Wild Wastelands trait active, this weapon is simply called Fist of Roar. But with the Wild Wastelands trait active, it's called, as you can see, Fist of the North Roar. And to create this item, you need an unarmed skill level of 75 or higher, and only one ingredient, Roar's talon. So the name of this weapon, the Fist of the North Roar, is a reference to the popular manga and anime series called Fist of the North Star. Fist of the North Roar, Fist of the North Star sound relatively similar, and the series is also known as Hokuto no Ken. I highly doubt my 1 year of Japanese has helped me pronounce that name correctly. Whoa, Hokuto no Ken! And just like Fallout, the manga Fist of the North Star is set in a post-apocalyptic world. For this next one, we need to come to the cave of the Abaddon. Sounds inviting, I know. As soon as you come in, you basically just want to walk straight ahead. And over tucked away in a corner, we will find this. What appears to be the statue of some kind of canine-related animal. This is correct, however, upon closer inspection, we will discover the heartbreaking truth as to what this is. A petrified corpse, frozen in solid dolomite, of a dog named Seymour. I'm sure anyone that is a fan of the show Futurama knows what this is. This is referencing Fry's petrified dog of the same name that he discovers in the episode Jurassic Bark. In that particular episode, we discover character Fry had a dog called Seymour, and just before Fry was cryogenically frozen, he told his dog Seymour to wait for him. Fry is then brought back to life 1,000 years into the future, and he hears that 20th century artifacts have been discovered. He goes to the museum to find his fossilized dog. His dog was so loyal that it sat there and waited for his master and literally became fossilized. But on the upside, you can pick Seymour up. As you can see in the inventory here, you can walk around, you can put him on a shelf. So as heartbreaking as that is, you do have a new ornament. For this next Easter egg, we need to come to 3rd Street Municipal Building. Once here on the upper levels, we can see a computer monitor turned on and active. So, of course, we want to head up to this computer monitor. Doesn't seem like anything too special. However, if we get relatively close, it will proc the Wild Wastelands encounter notification. Once we have a look at this terminal, however, we will discover why. As you can see on screen, it says password guest accepted. Now, this bit about the password being guest is a homage to the TV series named Archer, which is an American adult animated television series. In the show Archer, there is a running gag that all unknown passwords are simply guessed. And for the last Easter egg that is found in Fallout New Vegas' DLC Lonesome Road, we need to be at the end of the quest line for that DLC and inside Ulysses' temple. This is where, via nuclear warheads, you decide the fate of the Mojave Wasteland. After defeating Ulysses, you'll get to make your choice upon which fate to bring upon the Mojave Wasteland. For this Easter egg, you will need to redirect the missiles to target both NCR and Caesar's Legion. Once this choice is made, you do need to get the hell out of that room. And once you do escape, the first slide of the ending slides is a unique one.
The couriers finally really did it. They blew up the lands west and east of the Mojave, damning them all to hell.
So first of all, this shot here, this scene, this slide is completely reminiscent of one of the ending scenes from the 1968 film Planet of the Apes, where we will see some humans looking onto the half-buried Statue of Liberty on the beach. And in this slide here, we see 2 NCR soldiers witnessing and mourning the site of the half-buried Mojave Outpost Ranger Monument. And secondly, in Planet of the Apes, where they see this half-buried Statue of Liberty, Charleston Heston's character is seen damning them all to hell. And in Fallout New Vegas, we'll hear this line one more time.
Damning them all to hell.
So not only borrowing the setting and the shot of the slide, but borrowing that famous line. And with that, that does conclude our Fallout New Vegas DLC Easter eggs. However, for one reason or the other, there are 2 bonus Easter eggs. Now, these do not require DLCs, nor do they require the Wild Wastelands trait. They can be found in any completely vanilla version of Fallout New Vegas. Now, this first bonus Easter egg is pretty cool and actually an in-game mechanic that I had no idea existed until recently. If you crouch down and sneak up to a Brahmin, if you click to activate them while crouched, you will actually push them over. They have implemented a cow tipping mechanic in Fallout New Vegas. Now, this literally serves no purpose other than pure entertainment value, just like cow tipping in real life. For any of you who are too mature to know what cow tipping is, it is an activity, the participants of which are usually an unwilling cow and a group of drunk country dwellers who sneak into paddocks and tip cows over. And as you can see, just for fun, cow tipping was put into Fallout New Vegas. I've also got an interesting fact about Brahmin. The use of the name Brahmin was banned in the Indian version of Fallout 3 due to cows having a religious significance in Hinduism, but namely because the Hindu priests are called Brahmin. So that's actually how they came up with the name for these post-apocalyptic cows. They used the name of these Hindu priests, the Brahmin. Why that would lead to a banning of it? I don't know, the developers in India must have had some beef. And for the second and final bonus Easter egg in this video, we need to head to the Brewer's Beer bootlegging. Once we get here, we will find a tiny shack up against the hillside. Outside this shack, there is a character called Gord who is dead and is carrying nothing of interest. Once we head down into the basement, we will find that it is rather well equipped. We will also discover various pieces of evidence pointing towards that someone was most certainly brewing up something, probably trouble. However, the Easter egg lies right here. There is a wooden board, and painted on it, it says Strategic Nuclear Moose, and God said, let them have beer. Now this beer, Strategic Nuclear Moose, is referencing the world's strongest beer, or at least it was the world's strongest beer at the time of Fallout's release. This beer being called Tactical Nuclear Penguin. Tactical Nuclear Penguin's name comes from the amount of times this beer spent exposed to extreme cold. This beer was initially double barrel aged for 14 months, maturing in the deep, rich oak of Scottish whiskey casks. After this epic maturation, the beer was then frozen again, then frozen again. This was done to freeze out the water content of the beer and to be left with a more alcoholic liquid substance. This is an extremely strong beer with an alcohol content percentage of 32. The Tactical Nuclear Penguin also comes adorned with its own old school bottle stopper that allows you to enjoy it in moderation and not in one sitting. So here is Obsidian's recognition of that beer, Tactical Nuclear Penguin, with their very own Strategic Nuclear Moose. And God said, let them have beer. At least there's one thing that we can agree on. And there you have it, that does conclude the Fallout New Vegas DLC Easter eggs with its 2 bonus Easter eggs. If you did enjoy this video, be sure to check out the other 2 Fallout New Vegas Easter egg videos, and be sure to stay tuned for the Fallout 3 Easter egg videos. And as you can see on screen, there are other Easter egg videos for other games. If you did enjoy this video, please don't forget to leave a like, leave a comment letting me know your thoughts on all of these Easter eggs, and if you have any extra information, please feel free to enlighten myself and the other viewers. Be sure to share this video amongst your fellow Vault dwellers, and as always, if you did enjoy this video and you would like to see videos similar to this one, please subscribe. It helps me know that people are interested in these kind of videos, and in the long run will result in more of these kind of videos. Links to both Facebook and Twitter will be in the description. If you want to see some behind the scenes stuff or have some one-on-one chats, be sure to check out those links. If not, all good. And once again, I would like to thank you very much for watching. It means the world, and I will see you very shortly in the next video. I'll see you there.